Oh, the music stopped.
Hello, hello. I know the music is just so fire. It's just absolutely amazing. Just groove to it. It's the best way to start, really.
Right?
How are you doing today, Dean? How does it
I'm
feel to be
I'm
on the other
doing
side of the
awesome.
camera for this show?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's nice to be here instead of having to be in the chat.
Yeah, how's your sports knowledge? Because that's how Matt and I usually start the show.
Oh, I am not a sports ball person, so
Oh
quiz
no.
me.
Do you? So we were talking about Matt's take last week, and we told you we would all tell you what happened this week about Juan Soto and who he signed with. Do you have any idea what any of those words mean?
Uh Baseball.
That is correct. So Matt was incorrect, and Juan Soto actually did sign with the Mets. So there's been some great memes in our Discord about it. So if you are a sports ball fan, come check that out. But since Dean isn't a sports ball guy, well, just say hey, and what wisdom do you have for us today, Dean, to start this off with? How's your morning going?
I,
Any?
I
Is your
will
week?
give you sports related commentary. So for those who do not live in New England, Bill Belichick was just signed to be the head coach of a pretty decent college football team. And I don't know how other New England fans feel, but I appreciate this because I think the Crafts did him dirty. And I hope he goes over there and shows the world that he really is the best coach on the planet. So,
I think that was an interesting hire. I like that it's probably the NFL is like cool. We don't have to face Bill because now he's out of college, and it'll
right.
be interesting to see how it works out. Well, before we get into the stories, just to let everyone know, today is some exciting days. It's National Cocoa Day, so if you're looking for a beverage to go with your day, get some hot cocoa. And it's also National Salesperson Day. So if you are a salesperson, today is your day.
Thank you, salespeople, for driving the revenue that pays for my salary. I appreciate you. You're the goat.
Absolutely. So yeah, speaking of that, then let's go ahead and get into our first story here, which isn't about a salesperson, but I thought it was pretty interesting. The title here is "Am I Getting Used?" I've recently started a role as a technician contractor for an MSP, making 28 hourly in a fairly large city. He's been informed by his boss that time travel, yeah, time travel is not compensated, but neither is travel time. Unless it is over 60 miles. Yet I spend up to an hour and a half driving to job sites one way, always under 60 miles. Is this a bad gig or am I looking at it wrong? Thanks in advance. Dean, what's
This
your take
is
on
this.
this?
I love posts like this because there's the technically correct answer, and then there's the how you made an employee feel answer. And I think too often in business we stick with the technically correct answer only. So this guy's a contractor. He's 1099. He's not an employee, and there is no mandated rule in any state that he has to be paid for any mileage unless that was stipulated in his contract. That MSP is really his customer. So from that standpoint, he's not getting screwed. He has no real basis to be upset. But practically speaking, if you're hiring somebody, even as a contractor, you want them to like their job and you want that to, your customers, your clients to see that. So why put someone in the position where they feel hurt like this? And
Yep.
that is, I think, the other component of this is not whether the guy is right or wrong or the boss is right or wrong. Clearly the way it was delivered and communicated made this person feel hurt, and I don't know if that was smart.
Yeah, I mean, you really hit it. Like it's if you said he's contracting, so he's not W-2, which means it's not really have a boss. He has a customer, and you really look at
Right.
what is your contract state? If there's nothing in your contract about travel expenses, then there's really, I mean, it's cut and dry. There you go. Um, Now, there's I'm not on the 1099 contract world, but is there something about, I mean, aren't they able to do some sort of tax write-offs and all that stuff with there because there are like it's their own personal vehicle? There might be
Yeah.
something on that side of it. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but as far as this goes, I mean, this is gig that you signed up for and the contract was signed. Now, realistically, maybe we don't know the rest of the story, right? Maybe this is, hey, this is the only one he could find. He's having trouble finding work, and or if there's a plethora of other opportunities out there, then again, what does your contract say? Can you be contracted more than one? Finding something else out there. But to me, with how it's being used, it doesn't seem favorable to the contractor. But ultimately, since you're a contractor, that's on you to set those expectations and those stipulations.
And I mean, if you've never done this before, if this is your first time doing this kind of work, like it's easy for us to say that. It's harder to know that in the moment. So lesson learned. I think it's important too. Like, let's pretend for a minute that that was just a slip of the tongue in the way he wrote it, and he's actually W-2. Some states could count some of that as commute, in which case he also wouldn't necessarily be entitled to be paid for the time or the mileage. And I think that just goes to show you that, like, it's why it's important to ask questions. Like, and asking questions doesn't mean that you're being caustic or fighting your employer. Like, when you get involved, it's a relationship. And when you get involved at the beginning of that relationship, ask questions about stuff. And if you don't know what to ask them that, hey, I've never been in this position. What should I be asking you? It's something. And maybe you'll uncover things like this ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it definitely seems, if you're using your own car and you are W-2, there'd be something that you potentially raise a discussion about. And depending on the state, I think I know, I believe that there's no federal mandate requiring anything, but states are a little different when it comes to the mileage and things like that. But yeah, if
I think
you're
it's generally considered to not be rude if you're going to make a W-2 employee use their own vehicle to compensate them for the time and some portion of the mileage. And my guess would be there's probably no MSPs that watch this show that would cross their arms and be like, absolutely not. And if you don't want to pay that, and in our MSP, when we were smaller, we didn't want to keep paying that. We bought a company vehicle and go use the company vehicle. And there you go. Now the mileage, gas, any of that is, an expense for us internally to manage.
Yep. Insurance, all that fun stuff.
Yep.
Because way back in the day, at one point when I was delivering pizzas for Domino's, and we had to use our own cars, the insurance side was a fun part of that too, because then technically you're using your car for insurance, and they pretty much put everything on you for that. And then you call your insurance and they're like, oh, whoa, wait a second, you're using your car for business and driving it, now your rates go way up. And so it gets to be a kind of a mess with that. So some MSPs to do 1099 to W. So they convert. How does that? Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So, well, I was kind of talking to whoever was in chat there. Like, I know that some small businesses in general will do this thing where they will hire somebody on a contract, a 1099 contract, with the verbiage dangled that if this works out, we'll hire you permanently. And used in that intended way, that's okay. So if I said, hey, Josh, I want to hire you to do cabling for me as a contractor for 6 months, and at the end of your contract, I then was like, Josh, you're amazing, I want to hire you full time. That's totally fine. But it's this idea of staging it where instead of doing an introductory period with a freeze out on benefits as a proper W-2, I'm literally saying, hey, I'm going to hire you for less money with no benefits as a contractor for 3 months, and then I'll automatically convert you to W-2 after that. That is in many states not okay to do. I mentioned that only because if that was how it was framed and this employee is being treated, this contractor is being treated like an employee right now, that could also make it really confusing for somebody to feel like they're getting used because they're being treated like they're a W-2, but they're not.
Yep. So the bottom answer to this is the whole it depends. If you're not happy with the relationship and this is a sticking point, then brush up the resume and look for more contracts or other opportunities. But if you're okay with it, then hopefully it continues to be a good thing and resolves itself. So, all right. Well, we solved one problem. Let's go ahead and solve the next one here. This one is all yours, Dean.
This is a good one because well, I'll read it before I tell you why. Supporting one-man IT shops. So we have a local one-man IT outfit that is serving mostly break-fix clients, doing good work. Someone's got to do it. Ideally, he is looking to retire soon, but for now, he just wants to have another IT company available to pick up some of the larger projects and be a backup for day-to-day support. And, additional discussion here about how that might work and what should they do in this situation. And I like this because I've been in this situation multiple times. So the objective answer to this, if you are an MSP, a proper MSP, and you have at least a couple of employees, an established stable revenue stream, you shouldn't do this. But that's not going to matter because you're all business owners and you're nice people and you're going to feel bad for this other business owner and want to help them. So you're going to say yes to this. I know you will. You're going to say yes to this anyways. And so that's exactly what happened to us. And you kind of just got to remember that this is not a situation that is probably going to lead to anything significant in terms of any revenue or impact to your MSP. You were quite literally doing a kind charitable gesture to another small business owner. And I think as long as you frame it in that mindset where, yeah, no problem, at Josh's computer repairs down the street, if you ever get into a pickle, you need to take a week off, give us a little heads up and we can temporarily do some break fix for your clients. If you want to do that as a charitable thing, do it. It's not going to lead to anything significant. Please don't convince yourself it will, because then you start robbing your paying clients to support these other clients.
So would you recommend them having like a mutual services agreement drafted up, or how do you, if you're going to say, if they're going to do it, what is the proper way to do it?
So you do want to have an agreement set between the two of you that's going to stipulate some element of non-solicitation. It's going to, both from an employee standpoint, but from a client standpoint, it needs to stipulate who owns those clients. That's really important. It needs to stipulate if this person is going to be leaving for an extended period of time. One of the times we did this, it was because a local small business owner, computer repair shop, had to take a state-sponsored long-term trip somewhere for a while. They wanted someone to watch after their clients. Should stipulate all of those things because it'll just remove emotion and confusion. And understand the fact that even though those things are stipulated, there will be emotion and confusion. If this is going on for a while and you're better at this than this other person, their clients might like you, and that could be problematic. Like, that's why I say, like, you have to approach it from we're doing something charitable. If something from it, like in this case, this person retires and that charity then results in one or two of their clients that might be a fit becoming your client, that's awesome. That was a bonus. Don't enter into it expecting that revenue is going to come from it. It's a nice thing you're doing to support the community, uplift another small business owner, and support IT support just in general. Makes your logo look nice. Yeah, write it all down, have an agreement,
I mean, is there a point into hiring him on and just having him keep those clients under him, like, or I mean, is that an even worse thing to do?
I think once again, it's a giant, it depends. So anytime, and this, I would just give this out in general, anytime you're looking at any sort of a one man or one or two man shop of any business model that might potentially join your company as an employee, it's really important to figure out why they wanted to stop their current business. Because in most cases, it's not because they wanted to become someone else's employee, even if they're saying that. And you got to know that up front. But more specifically here, this is a break fix shop, and it's likely generating enough revenue for this person to live their life. So it's, by that definition, not an unsuccessful fix shop. There's a model to running that is typically antithetical to a managed model. So there's that whole red flag there that if you bring this person on in their book of business, does any of it even fit your model? I mean, are any of the things that make you as an MSP, you even going to apply here? Or is the amount of work you're going to have to do to meet with all these people, align them to using your tools while keeping this person as an employee, when every time I've seen this happen, it's only maybe 1 or 2 clients that even loosely fit into your ICP from this. Is it worth it? And that's up to you. You know that. But often the answer is probably not. So
And typically, if it's break fix, there's also no contracts either. So if you're looking
right.
at buying him out, then like what are the value of the contracts? And so yeah, I think to sum it up, the the answer is it depends. Button up your MSA and get a mutual service agreement with that. And if anything, if you have to do it, do so more on the charitable side. So all right, well, we now know how to support those one-man IT shops that need help. So in that same vein, then, let's say that we didn't listen to our advice on the last story, and we brought on the one-man shop, hired him on, and now we're interviewing all of his clients. How do we decide if we're not taking a client? What's the criteria, and what do we do? That's what our next story is. So
That's
we had
such a
already
good one.
talked about we'd already talked about ICP, and we're not talking about the insane clown posse here. We're talking about the ideal client profile. So this
Could be
person's trying to
both.
understand. It could be. I mean, ICP could be somebody's ICP, right? It could fit in
Right.
there. um, Trying to understand how medium and large MSPs are run. One of the trends you see is you need to know who your ICP is, and I don't imagine these MSP owners wanting to be in a position where their team is spending time on their own clients. So, how do you handle clients or requests that aren't in your ICP?
Well, I mean, doesn't that first take knowing your ICP?
It sure does. So,
Yeah.
all right, we did the work. We've done our market research. We've identified our clients, the profitability. We've looked at the trends. We've decided this is the verticals that we want to exist in. This is the seat count that we want to go into. This is the revenue. This is the operational maturity that we want our clients to be in. So we have an ICP. And Josh's taco shop comes to you, Dean, and you're an OML level 3 MSP, and I'm a food truck who wants to set up a business, and I have this very small restaurant, and I need a POS. I need some maybe ubiquity APs up there, and I say, hey, I need you guys to help me out. What does that conversation look like?
Well, I think it's important first, what's your goal? And it's like with what you just described, I know from my MSP, you are not a managed client fit. You sound like a fit for a project. So if right at the beginning, if you have the ability to delineate, and not everyone does, some MSPs will not do this, but if you can delineate that somebody can be a project client, versus a managed client, and there is a fit there, I would start down that conversation because depending on your budget and everything, we may absolutely be able to do that. But assuming that's not the case, well, there's the obvious answers first, right? The easy ones. Is their budget aligned with your basically normal pricing? And that's an easy thing to figure out right away. Is their technical debt and willingness to overcome it aligned with your model? Once again, very easy to figure out. If that taco truck has no technology, there's no technical debt. And so then it's simply a matter of how willing are you to invest in the bare minimum things we would require to feel safe about supporting your point of sale and your customer Wi-Fi. In a more complex organization, if that was, Josh's taco trucks and headquarters, well, that might be a little bit different because, you might have that mysterious machine in the back room that's on an old laptop that can't be closed. Because if it does, billing doesn't work, but no one knows why. That stuff's easy. And so start there. It gets interesting past that because you can have a client that fits your ICP that seems superficially willing to make those changes, but yet is still not going to be a fit. And to the OP's original question, especially at that medium to larger MSP size, well, that type of MSP is likely now refining the types of clients they work with based on best fit for business operation. You kind of need to assess the prospect's operational maturity level. And if it's too far out of whack, if it's too high or too low compared to yours, you probably aren't going to be able to make them happy long term, even if everything else is totally fine. Budget, size, technology needs. And that's kind of an advanced concept.
Yeah, that's where I like also get into that as well is, let's say, all right, you're at OML level 3 and your ICP is, we want to take clients who are 1 OML above or below, so at a 2 or a 4. But the idea is you would bring them on at a lower OML, but through your MSP's amazingness, you're going to walk them through it and mature them. But at what point? I mean, do you set deadlines on that? At what point do you kind of
Well,
get in there and see,
so,
okay, these guys don't,
but no, you
there's no
won't.
interest, and yeah,
That, I think that Band-Aid has to be ripped off. No, you won't. You might
yep,
mature. OML isn't your technology maturity. It's your overall business process maturity, your operating maturity. And like, yes, in a client who is already willing to improve and mature their operational maturity without you, improving their technology will help them, so they will improve. But, you know, most clients aren't that. And so you'll end up with a client with a very, dialed in technology roadmap that still chases 6 months of AR because, they're bad at getting money from people, or who has two owners who are both in charge but say different things, or, like all these other like smaller indicators of a company that internally is not high maturity. You're not going to fix that. And so you end up in a situation where, in this case, they're lower maturity than you. You're proactively constantly chasing them. These are these clients that you always have to constantly hound to get things done, just to get them to meet with you, to sign a waiver, to get a project done. Maybe they say roll out MFA and 2 users just won't cooperate, and it takes 6 months of chasing the POC to get those users to finally install, the MFA token or whatever. Like, it's those clients. And you don't build value there. You end up becoming annoying. And so they start ignoring you. On the other side, if they're above you, initially you'll be fine, but then you're reacting to them. They're constantly coming back and asking for high maturity deliverables and concepts that you're not ready for. That might be a client where normally you do a quarterly meeting, and this client wants a every other week 30-minute level 10 meeting with their CTO where they're covering current, trends in, risks in the market. And like, can you do that? Like, I couldn't have done that at my MSP at this time. Like, so it's why you just have to, like, especially at that more medium size, you have to be careful. It's not just ICP alignment. It's where their business, how it runs, how they think, and where they want to go with it. And does that match you and your path?
mm-hmm. Well, and I think having a minimum spend too, and figuring out again what that is, and this is where you might partner with those, the trunk slammers or the one man shops, or kind of a lower MSP, because then you can say to these prospects like, hey, at this time you might not be ready for
Right.
us, or things like that, and not be afraid to have that conversation and just lay it out for them like, hey, this is what we do, and maybe at this time we're not the right fit. We can refer you to these people that are great, but then down the road, once you guys mature and grow, then we can absolutely have that call again. So just having those relationships with other MSPs, so you can kind of do the same thing. If they get somebody that is too big for them to support, then you kind of trade off.
Well, and imagine the power of that. Imagine being the first professional service provider that has ever been honest and upfront enough with somebody to say, hey, you know what? Well, while from a technology standpoint, we're capable of meeting your needs, but from a relationship alignment and sort of maturity of our organization, we're not. Like, I remember that company. That's an MSP is going to be in the back of my head now, because they're the first professional provider I've ever met that respected me enough to say that. And there's a chance that later, if you then do align in maturity, that they're gonna want to switch to you. It's kind of, and if you think about it like humans, like, have you ever had a human relationship where somebody's been like, hey, like, objectively, there's no reason why we can't be friends or hang out, but due to these other reasons, I don't see it working out. There's kind of a respect you have for that level of transparency.
Yep. And then you get all like, oh well, I'm gonna show that person. I'll fix myself and I'll be their friend. Gets you on the path there. So, all right. Well, let's continue our story here. So, you turned down Josh's taco truck and his enterprise. And now I'm like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to sling tacos anymore. Maybe I want to get into IT. Um, yeah, where are you finding qualified applicants? Are they people who are retiring from the taco truck business, or where are you finding these? So this person, mid-sized MSP, is looking to hire, but we're striking out with candidates from Indeed. Hiring might be a bit outdated, especially for the tech industry. So, what hiring platform or how are you finding qualified applicants for your mature MSP?
This is such a great question. I was on a call yesterday. I was talking about this. I think the one fundamental operating problem that every single MSP of every size has across our entire industry, and I apologize in advance, all of us are atrocious at hiring. Every single one of us. There's some of us that fail less. It is just one of the most lagging skills in this entire space. I would say even more so than the ability to sell. So I feel this person's pain. I felt their pain. I'm sure you felt their pain. Everybody has felt this pain at some point on either side, as a job seeker or somebody who's looking to hire. Just acknowledging that out of the gate. Like I do not think there's anybody that could get in our chat right now that could honestly claim they have the one solution that has mastered this perfectly. I think it just comes down to like, what's best for you.
I was hired off a Discord, right? So luckily my company had a presence on a MSP Discord, and it literally just so happened that the stars aligned and they were looking for what I was looking for, and it literally just fit perfectly. I mean, how do you like that? That's not something you can have in your hiring plan, right? I don't think you could literally put like, we're going to hang out in Discords and try to get people.
That can be a strategy, but like think about the initial premise, which is hiring a qualified applicant. What does that mean? If you go to the very beginning of this, when you were talking about baseball, who just got signed to the Mets? Who's that guy you're saying?
Soto.
And why did they bring him on? What's he good at?
I mean, he's good at baseball. Clearly, he's got the biggest contract now. So
the reason where I'm going with that is like, did they pull him out of a farm team? Is he off college?
No. They pulled him from the Yankees. So they pulled him from one of the biggest teams in MLB.
And were they able to pull somebody who had already been trained how to professionally play the game at that level for $150,000 a year?
Yeah. I mean,
right?
They were paying him millions.
It costs millions. Right.
Yeah.
So, and then not only is somebody who is already trained or qualified going to cost probably a lot more than most of us typically put our ads together, misalignment. There's the fact that like, trained by who and to do what? Like there's a risk involved there. Like this guy was good with the Yankees, with their coaching, with that team. He may be talented. It doesn't mean, and we see this all the time in sports, doesn't mean he's going to perform at that level on a different team. All other factors the same. And I think for a lot of MSPs, that's the big mistake, is this obsession with this idea that I need somebody who is supremely experienced and already knows how to MSP. I think that's the wrong problem to solve. And if you reframe it as, given that baseball analogy, who could I pull from a farm team? Have I been building that farm team? Who could I pull that has the basic skill set and talent enough to be useful, but is going to need some adjusting and training to be able to perform at my MSP to standard? Well, that's a way less expensive person.
Yep.
And there are hundreds of thousands of those people. When I put up an Indeed ad for somebody like that, we get drowned in hundreds of applicants. So I think that's a big component of it. And that does front load the burden of training somebody, especially at a smaller MSP, on the owner, but this is a mid-sized MSP. There are other team members. Like somebody on your team should be capable of training this person. And fundamentally, and I mean, Josh, you run an MSP. How much stuff there actually needs a supremely qualified L2 or L3 with 5+ years of MSP experience? Or how much have you actually made that is processor automation that an intelligent person with good common sense and troubleshooting can easily follow an SOP and arrive at the same result?
Yeah, that's the to your ladder. I mean, that's how we operate. Right? Everything has an SOP. Everything has a documentation. So if you don't know how to do something, guess who gets to make a document if there isn't one? All right. So having all of those things in place. So like you said, you have somebody with critical thinking skills who has the experience. And now there still is a qualified approach to that, right? They still need to be a culture fit to kind of how
Yes.
our culture works and things like that. And the one thing we need to bring up is the customer service. And I know I've brought up on the show plenty of times. It's no secret. I was general manager of a restaurant in Buffalo Wild Wings for a handful of years, and I think those people can translate if they have a troubleshooting mindset. They can translate anybody, not just restaurant people, but retail customer experience can translate to the MSP world very well because it's customer service. At the end of the day, again, if you have critical thinking or troubleshooting mindset, I can tell you what buttons to push on a keyboard. I can give you a KB. I can do that. It is a lot harder to train people on how to give good and effective customer service and build those relationships. And those people who work retail, who work
Yep.
restaurant, have that skill in bunches.
If you want 2 hot tips, I have, for anyone who doesn't know, based on my MSP and other roles, like I've hired literally hundreds of help desk technicians. 2 things I would look for if you're going to take Josh's approach and find somebody who's amazing at customer service, but maybe isn't supremely experienced over here. First one is get them to do a typing test. If they can't do at least about 45 words per minute, they're simply going to struggle to use your tools, which will be a huge barrier to overcome in training. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is figure out if there's some passion they have where they tinker and experiment. It doesn't have to be IT. They need to, if they have a hobby, great. They have to be willing to experiment in that hobby. That's what you're looking for. It's that type of thinking. If they're into cooking, this is somebody who will then start talking to you about how they started creating their own recipes, or they're making, their own sauces, or like you want that little extra bit. The same thing you would have done with, well, I'm not just going to buy a home lab, I'm going to make a home lab. You want that same style of thinking about whatever makes them happy. That's that passion for troubleshooting, even if they don't frame it that way. That will then
Yeah.
combine with that customer support skills will allow you to build a really great tech.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you've seen the other side of that, where we hired one of my first MSPs. We hired a salesperson who was a waitress, great at her job, great at that. And in the 8 months that she worked for that MSP, she lost 1 client and gained 0. So there is there is a downside to that. And like to Dean's point, having that kind of extra drive and the little extra on there, but. But I think having the would you say that there's anything into, like, we didn't even get into, like, job description, salary ranges, does any of that matter? Does
There
it matter
there's
what you're posting on?
so much psychology in how it's a sales role. You are selling your company to somebody. And so fundamentally, if you are a small business owner that has that 1940s and 50s boomer, actual baby boomer, not derogatory, baby boomer approach to hiring, where the job is a gift that you're giving somebody, that concept has been dead in the employment world for 40 years. Move on from that. You are selling somebody on a role at your company, and you need to approach hiring from that standpoint. And if there are elements of that that feel icky to you as an owner, you have to get over it. A great example of that is the concept of DEI, not in terms of having a whole DEI statement and, employing people that don't fit with your culture values just to make a quota. The concept I brought up to a lot of people is like, are your job postings written in a way where the largest addressable amount of qualified people would apply? That is technically a DEI style of thinking. And if I say that to a lot of small business owners, they close their ears and turn off. Like, I don't believe in any of that. Like, guys, get over yourselves. Like, for example, like women techs, right? About 40% of your applicant pool are people who identify as female who can do tech work. They will not apply to the same type of job ad that a male will. All I'm saying is change some words around, and now you have about 80% of the application pool applying. And of those, you can pick the best person. Like, practical steps like that. There's a lot of psychology you can use to tweak things on that front side, and just like selling, appeal to the widest possible TCP.
How about things such as instead of saying a layer 2 or a level 2 technician, you have an IT ninja or computer superhero? How do you, what is your thoughts on the difference between those two kind of terminology?
I think it depends on why you're using that kind of language. In the same way, I would say that about any type of marketing. If that's your culture internally and that's how we're going to live it at your business, great. We're being authentic. Things that I sometimes see happen where stuff like that gets a negative connotation, it is words only. That's not how it works internally. Those terms allow an organization to excuse a lack of career development because we don't have levels or defined typical roles. So, well, Josh, sorry, there is no level 3. There's just senior ninja, and well, senior ninjas, don't have a market average. So enjoy your $60,000 a year, senior ninja. So if that's what you're doing, don't do that. That's not cool. But if that really is a part of your culture, who you are as a company, that person's going to join and get a white karate belt on day 1. And as they level up your career plan, they're going to get different colored belts and a little ninja figurine or whatever. Yeah, absolutely say that. That's who you are. It's your identity. Don't lie. And that's kind of where that all comes back to. Like, people aren't dumb. They've never been dumb. There's been no point in human history where people were dumb. People are not dumb. Be authentic. Be who you are. Start that at the job posting process. Carry that through the entire interview process. The right person who sees that authenticity is going to like that, value that, feel like they're winning on their first day, and feel like that's 6 months into the job as well. And you've done a good thing.
And I'm a little jealous of these ninja belts now, though. Like, I kind of want one. That's great. I know, like, you personally, in the later parts of my career, when I was more established, I'd see those posts and want absolutely nothing to do with them. I'm
Right.
like, okay, cool. That tells me you're a startup. You might be a little, immature
Yep.
on that. Like, you have fun, you drink beer on Fridays and all that. It sounds cool, but it also just gives like tech bro startup vibes that I wanted no part of. So, don't get me wrong, I'm all about having fun at work and being, ridiculous. Like, dude, if you get a ninja belt, like, that sounds awesome, right? But like, that's those kind of things would turn me off from searching for those. So,
And I think that's important to understand. Not every job posting is going to appeal to every person. Like,
mhm.
not every company is the company I want to work for. It doesn't mean it's a bad company. It's
Like,
okay. Like, if that,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And I think now, I mean, what I'm doing is like in the various MSP communities that I'm a part of, if I have a friend or an acquaintance whose MSP is hiring, like, I'm promoting them on their behalf. Like, I'll go to my friends who I know are looking, and I'm like, hey, this MSP is awesome. They have an opening. You should apply. So I think there's definitely value in the networking and relationship buildings as well.
yeah. I'm not trying to dismiss that. It's at all, and apologies for that. It's because I've also hired people from Discord. It's the amount of front-loaded effort you need to put in. You
Yeah.
have to be a part. You have to actually be a part of the community first, and
Yeah,
so
you can't
that
just
if you
pop
if
in there as a new
right,
account and say, hey, you're not going to get
yeah.
anything with that.
So definitely do that if you're not, but like, that's not going to solve your hiring need this week if you're not already in those communities.
Okay. All right. Well, let's say that you hired the highest level 4 Grandmaster Monk Ninja that you possibly can, and you have a client who just has this crazy issue that you can't solve. Your level 4 Grandmaster Monk Ninja can't solve. Brings us to our next story. Who do MSPs call when they can't figure something out? A lot of experience needling through the stack and spotting performance reliability issues for SMBs and big corporations. Transition to a product management, but I'm tired of being downstream of bad engineering and architecture teams who immediately turn on me when I point out design issues, barely utilized VMs, cloud caching, etc. Is there a type of consultant that MSPs rely on to unwind complex recurring issues or help mitigate costs? I love solving riddles, but I need to find the right spot where the stakeholders will be willing to receive an accurate assessment instead of trying to bury it. Looked into FinOps, but that space seems a little toxic and full of snake oil. So, yeah, any advice are here, other than Reddit, but that's a legit answer. I mean,
Yeah. I had suggested this topic. I have a lot of opinions on it. So this person does not come from an MSP background. They come from a sysadmin background. And I think that's not to throw the question out with the bathwater, but that's important. So fundamentally, it's the wrong question to ask because it's not a question most MSPs need solved because of their business model. But I get why it's being asked. Like, what's the old joke that like a sysadmin's got all the time in the world to solve any problem? So you give a sysadmin enough time and they're going to solve it. Because, you know, like I actually have a good example of that. We had a client at our MSP. It was a large construction client. They had this very, very occasional weird networking issue where certain ports on their switch stack just would stop switching and then start again. And there was never anything we could figure out when it was happening. It would happen so quickly. It wasn't a loopback. It wasn't spanning tree. All the switches were in good shape. Never could quite iron it out. It was a like once a month, 2-minute problem. When our relationship with them ended, they ended up hiring about a year later our former lead tech to now be their internal IT manager. And within his first 2 months, he figured it out and fixed it. And basically what he did was he sat in the network room on a laptop for a week in front of the switch stack. And the minute somebody reported the issue, he immediately was in the console logging in, looking for it. I forget what the issue was. It was some crazy thing with the way one of the switches was basically getting saturated, like the memory in it or something. Like, he's able to solve it. That's kind of a great example of this. Like, he could go sit in that network closet for a week because he worked there. He had the same stakeholders as the end users. He had full buy-in from his boss that his time could be spent there for that week. He didn't need to resell that time to something else. Like, he had 100% accountability and authority to sit there and find a root cause analysis. That's not how MSPs work. And it doesn't mean it's not how we should want to work. I'm not excusing ITIL ignorance of incident problem, the problem side of things. It's just, that's not what we do. That's not generally an MSP model. We are not there to do deep root cause analysis, no matter what the costs are, until the problem never occurs. We either basically band-aid things or we rip it out and put a new one in. That is our model. So I would say for the average MSP that has not bitten off things that are above their ability to deliver, this shouldn't really be that much of a need anyone really has too often, because we're not doing that. But there are times, certainly, like, I don't know, you have an MSP that maybe you're just now getting into Azure and you got one person on your team that's certified and knows what they're doing, and they get sick and they're gone. And now nobody on the team literally knows how to log into or even set up a new template in Azure. That could happen. Not anyone's fault. Then in those cases, absolutely, there are master MSPs that you can hire that can come in and do that on an as needed basis, a recurring basis. You can do staff aug. You can use your vendor support. You could go do something like this person is proposing and find an individual on a contracted basis who comes and helps you out. So yes, this exists. It exists within the channel. Most people don't need this on a consistent or recurring basis because our business model just doesn't support it. It's your taco truck example. It would be like that taco truck owner being asked, how often do you find you need to bus tables? And do you have a table busing solution? Probably never, because it's a food truck. Maybe very rarely, if they're catering from the food truck at an event, there could be an expectation that they will. And then at that point, they'd hire temporary people to do it. It's very similar idea in your MSP.
Yep. Or I'd go to my taco truck Discord and say, hey, I need some help. I don't know how to do this. Or can anyone, offer hands? Or back to the MSP, we said the vendor, but your CSP and stuff too. I mean, your Ingram, your Synix, your Paxate, your SureWebs, whoever you go through, a lot of those have professional services as well. So if you need hands, that's a good place to look to. So in the sake of time, let's go ahead and go to the next one here. We got 2 left. We got one more serious one and then a fun one to end on. And I liked this one. It is a super long post. It's called MSP Model, but without the price. It's super long, so I'm going to give you the synopsis because I just want to see Dean's reaction to this. And I don't know if he's seen it yet. But basically, this person is they're running a break fix, a small IT, a one-man shop. And he's doing things like Microsoft 365 support, setting up accounts, remote troubleshooting, setting up SharePoint, DNS, etc. But none of this generates consistent income. It's all just ad hoc, managing things like client credentials, two-factor authentication, domain access. Every time he helps them is becoming a hassle. So he's exploring the idea of a lightweight subscription service. Not exactly a full MSP model, but more fits. And here's his pricing. One user would cost 200, 3 users would cost 250, 10 users would cost 350 a month. And the services, it would just be setting it up in a partner portal, managing DNS, and 1 hour of technical support per month that doesn't roll over. How many holes can you poke into this?
So in the execution of that, like the actual plan, infinite holes. It's the worst idea I've ever heard. But the spirit of what they're arriving at, I agree with that, right? Like you're making people happy and supporting their technology, and you're just recognizing that you've reached a point where you need consistency of income to do that better and be paid fairly. Kudos to this person for having that awareness and for understanding that they want to try and still maintain an experience without being rude or, overcharging. Like I don't disagree with any of those feelings. I don't think that's the right approach. And I have 2 suggestions for this person. The first one is, rather than trying to convert from doing everything ad hoc to everything not, and then pricing it out of guilt to a price you go out of business on, how about you start doing one thing on a managed basis and everything else ad hoc? Great example of this. I'm not plugging this company, but just as an example, like it's something like a Datto. Like, why don't you start reselling Datto only and just doing managed backups? And that's your only recurring line item. You already have a margin you got to meet by reselling it, so you can't cheapen out too much on yourself. They already have a model, for how the pricing is calculated. Start there. See your comfort level with selling a recurring service with something simple that most of your clients will understand the need for. Backups is a great place, or managed antivirus, like one thing. If you do that and you like that idea, and you want to learn more about how to grow a recurring revenue business, but you're still stuck in this mindset that it's my job to make it price effective, don't go read any MSP crap. Go watch YouTube videos on how to start a lawn care business. You'd be amazed if you seriously you go watch go watch a couple of them YouTube videos to talk about how to get started cutting lawns as a business and grow it into a recurring revenue business. It's literally the same model as an MSP. They'll explain it way better than any MSP person would. You won't have any emotion because they're not talking about products or technology you like, and it'll open your eyes to be like, oh, all right, so the client's lack of ability to afford it isn't my problem necessarily to offset by being cheap. Got it. Go watch how to start a lawn care business videos.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that popped out of me is like, so you're starting at 200 a month, and then 10 users is 350, but you only get 1 hour support. So like, what happens if they need like a second hour? Or, I mean, the scale, how did you arrive at that number? I mean, is that there's so many questions.
It's a misunderstanding of the economics of a service business, which is super common because you're applying the logic you would apply to commodity products, right? If I'm selling 10 tacos at a time instead of one at a time, then I can buy more taco materials in bulk, save cost. Like I basically, like, the scale of demand for the tacos decreases the cost. That does not work in services. That's not how a service business operates at all, even slightly. And that's literally why I sort of half tongue in cheek, but seriously said, go watch a lawn care video. It is the same concept. And it'll just get that across that, like, the quantity of lawns you can now mow does not decrease your cost to mow any one lawn. So you actually don't discount as the quantity increases at all. But that's hard. I mean, that's not a natural feeling. And especially if you've only been a consumer or at that, one-to-one transactional level, that feels gross. I mean, that can't be true, which I totally get. Like, so kudos to this person for trying to do something different and new. I think that's awesome. And I give them a lot of credit for putting their idea out there on Reddit, and hopefully they'll be able to learn and improve. And a year from now, we'll see a cool post and now they have a couple of managed clients. And that's the best thing about this industry.
But if you don't do that, it's just going to be like that the skit in The Office where Michael Scott's just crunch the numbers, crunch them again. So, all right, cool. Well, with the time running out, we got the last story here, and the last story comes down to Dean. What are you getting me for Christmas? What's a good gift for a sysadmin? So a lot of us are sysadmin. I guess technically I'm not a sysadmin, but if you do want to give a gift for a fellow sysadmin, what are some suggestions that you would have?
Do they get out of their chair and go anywhere?
I mean, you could be. They could be that that sysadmin that hides in the server room that you can only access with a badge, so you never see them. But you just want to thank them for uptime. Um, I think the top comment on this is pretty cool. They said a lockpick set, and interestingly, it ended up getting used a fair amount by some of them. I know for some, I mean, depending on the person, alcohol is all it can be a great gift, but there's a lot of people who might not drink or might not receive that. I got this cool little thing right here. It's well, because I have a background, you can't see it, but it's like a desk cleaning kit. So I got all these like fancy tools to clean my keyboard and stuff like that. Just something unique, a little brush. Like, I mean, that'd be kind of an idea. There's always you could go gift card route. You could be like our friend Henry and gift a llama, maybe llama farming.
I'm trying to so it's obviously people have personal preferences. It's tough. I think that in general, if you work a job where you use tools, both software or physical tools, to be effective at the job, most of us do not buy the best tool for the job as an employee because it's our money and I'll make it work with whatever I have. So that's another angle. If you know the sysadmin well, you know what they do. Like one of my favorite ones that I thought I threw in the chat, but I might not have, is Patchbox's setup exe installation tool. Like if this is somebody that does a lot of network racking, I guarantee you they're not going to spend like $120 to buy this for themselves. But if you bought it for them, it'll change their life. A good Fluke meter is like that. If they crimp a lot of cables, get them a really high quality like Belden or Klein tool, crimper that cuts the terminations. If they do something from a software standpoint, and there's a particular piece of software that would enhance their lives they would never pay for, get them a subscription. So that's a whole nother avenue here. Is the same way if you said this, I'm a plumber, what do I get the plumber? Well, what tool do they use every day, and is there a better one they would never spend their own money on but would change their life?
Yeah, I think there was a really cool bit kit, like there's like a screwdriver with like 60 different bits and like extensions and things like that. I don't work with hardware anymore, but I know when I did, like the person who it was he brought that in and everyone used it, and then when he left, it was sorely missed. So that would have been invaluable to have. So yeah, I think I like that idea to be a little more meaningful, a little more useful. There's also one thing that to your point, a Fluke thing. There's something called Pocket Ethernet, and these things are super cool. So that would be something I'd recommend. I'll post that in the chat too. Yeah, I think there's like a little app on the phone that comes with it. It's been a while since I've used it, but they're really cool. So that'd be another recommendation.
If you're made of money, one other thing that I would say that there is not a sysadmin on the planet that would not be happy to get this. Get somebody a sort of like medium quality, it can be no discs, but a medium quality NAS, like a Synology that has enough built-in CPU and memory where they could do something like run Docker or other applications. Because I don't care what level sysadmin they are, what OS they work in, they will get excited that they basically got a miniature server they can do something interesting with.
That would be cool. I know my wife is asking me about like, what would you use like a Raspberry Pi for? And I'm like, I have no idea. But you know what? If I got one, I would find something to do with it. So
you could set up a Pi-hole server at your house then run all your DNS through.
Come on, man. I got cloud computing in my background. I already got one of those in AWS. Those are fun. All right. Well, Dean, thank you for joining us. This has been a blast.
Thanks for having me.
I enjoyed pitching you some softball questions so you could share your wealth of knowledge with us, and it's much appreciated that you tune in weekly, and you're pretty much in every one of these threads. So I can't thank you enough for what you do with the community, and I'm honored to partner with you and get to do some of these cool events and webinars. So what do you got coming up? Anything you want to pitch? This is the plug part of the show here.
I don't have anything particularly awesome coming up other than every Monday you can catch some Spicy Monday. I would say, though, some of the questions we talked about today involved learning, training, and development. Check out Empath, MSP, because that's what we're doing. And if you're not aware of it, training, learning, and development for your whole MSP. What are you doing? What do you have going on next? What does MMN have going on next?
We're actually taking a break. This is the last episode until I think the first episode of 2025 is January 17th. So MMN's taking a month off here for the holidays, but we have a Discord. So please check out our Discord. I'm sure there'll be a QR code that'll magically appear somewhere over here where you can submit your stories, come hang out with us, chat. You could probably maybe hire somebody from the Discord if you want. Also, if you want to be a guest host on this, if you could email team@mspmedianetwork.com, which we'll throw into the chat here, shoot that an email and we can have you on as a guest host on one of our shows. It's always nice to get fresh experiences and faces on here. And then for me on here, the only thing I would say is please check out our IR game, our next free meeting that we're doing, or the game we're playing, is next Friday. So come check that out. There's a sign up. It's absolutely free at this point. We're going through the business email compromise scenario, which I'm sure many of you have worked, and there is a lot more that goes into it other than just resetting a password. There's a lot of the business side that we focus on, the emotion side. I did it recently for the South Dakota Infraguard that I'm a part of, and there was a lady who broke down and literally said, "You're the first tabletop I've been a part of who has touched on the human emotion and the human element aspect of it," and that's really what we're aiming to do, is solve for more of the business and the human side rather than the technical side. So it is a tabletop unlike any other. It is a very passion project that I'm very passionate about. So please come check us out.
IR game's awesome. You should definitely try to sign up to participate in one of the live ones that Bob does. Sometimes I had so much fun doing that.
Yep. Dean killed it too. He was all worried. I was like, I don't know
what
I
would have been screwed if Amanda from D4, if she hadn't been there and like been thinking critically about what to do next, I would have been screwed.
Yep. Yeah, it's intense. So definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We will see you guys in about a month. Have a great, safe, happy holidays.
Have a good winter, everybody.
This has been a broadcast of the MSP Media Network.